As we approach another NFL season, we've talked periodically throughout this season about fantasy football. And Josh, I got a lot of pressure on me. I may or may not be an advisor for Rebecca's team, my fiance, in an all-girls fantasy football league team her team is called the Touchdown Divas. These are really big issues. Let's tackle them on the Back Nine.
This is the Back Nine with Dennis Williams and Josh Mora.
Well, my friend, it's getting that time of year, fantasy football, and are you playing? You still play?
I play it weekly. I do like DraftKings, and I don't get the league thing. Actually, I got so frustrated doing those league things way back that I'm like, they need to have a daily or a weekly thing because everybody would get hurt.
Yes.
The beauty about weekly is you just move on if your team sucks the week before.
Well, and that's so right. You invest all this time if you're really into it and trying to win, and then you get one injury or a run of injuries, and you're done.
Right.
Or there's just some randomness. There was one year where I had the best team all year. This is 20 years ago. And I scored in the semifinals of the playoffs the second most points of any team the entire season. And the first most was the guy playing against me that week, and I was done, and I gave it up. And now I just do the survivor pools because that's a little less effort.
Yeah. Interesting story, though. Beck plays in an all-female one, and it's located...
Beck, your fiance.
Yes, and it's located in Buffalo. It's through her sister with a team, and we do it remote. I'm like her assistant in the background. And last year we took Kincaid, Cook, and late. Like it's not happening this year. Not getting those guys late this year. No.
Another thing that I don't like about fantasy is that it emphasizes scorers, right? The receivers, the running backs, the quarterbacks. The linemen, the defensive players don't really get a lot of love. And we have this week for our guest a guy who his love came in other ways. He got nine-time Pro Bowler, a 4-time All-Pro, 13 years in the National Football League. I think it's fair to say, Dennis, he might be the most decorated person we've had on this show.
Yeah, no, and 8 in a row with the Bills. How about 8 in a row?
8 in a row with the Buffalo Bills, and then one more with the Chicago Bears where he played a Super Bowl. Of course, if you follow the league, you know I'm talking about Ruben Brown. And Ruben, it is so great to see you. You were one of my favorite interviews of all time. And my first question for you, so don't disappoint me here after I just said that. My question to you is, at this time of year, I mean, it's been a while since you've been in the league, but at this time of year, does your body still say, hey, I should be getting ready for football. I should be getting ready to play?
No, I've been retired enough now that it's in its retirement mode. And when I hear about camps and OTAs and all of these things, I'm saying, thank God. I'm good.
The body's had enough.
How do we create fantasy football for offensive linemen? What would be the stats we could keep? There should be that. Like, it would be great if we could have just one sort of fantasy. Why don't we create that? That sounds like a business model.
It is possibly a way. I would say one way is calculating negative and positive run plays, possibly. Obviously, the sacks are possible. Maybe penalties or not. Those are just some things that come off the top of my head.
Yeah, let's do it. So, Ruben, you've transitioned obviously onto the back nine with a whole bunch of stuff going on. What's the post-football career been like for you from a personal standpoint? I know everybody misses it, but you were always poised to do some big things. And I know you've gotten into a little bit of broadcasting, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. How's the back nine going for you?
It's going great. It's given me an opportunity to dabble in a little bit of everything that I've had interest in, to study and to play drums for a short period of time. But probably most of the time was spent getting my kids prepared to go off to college. And now they're off and they're starting to graduate from college. So that was a big part of it. Like you said, I did some TV and radio and things. That was fun. But mainly I did a lot of home dad stuff, driving the kids to and from wrestling practices. And when my son was interviewing for colleges, I'm driving them to and from and stuff like that. So I got to do all of those cool things.
How was that? How much of an adjustment was that for you? So much, we've talked to Brad Faxon about this last season, that moment where you're going from being so intense about your preparation and what you have to do for getting ready for your season, even when it's in the off season, to now suddenly being available all the time for your family, for your kids? How much of an adjustment was that? And maybe what were some of the positives and the challenges that you faced in those moments?
It was very difficult because here I had something that demanded so much time from me. And I've been doing it for so long, and I just knew what to do within it, and I did it until my career was done. Now, after that, what do I do with all of that time? What do I focus on? What's the most important thing? At first, I really didn't know. I was bouncing all over the place. I was taking all types of gigs and opportunities all over until I finally just settled down and was like, what would make me most happy is just seeing my kids do well. Once I settled into that, I gave up a lot of other things that I thought were going to be what I wanted to do when I got finished with ball. But just by taking them to school and doing things with them, I built other interests.
Yeah.
And things came to me, then I'm like, oh, I'd like to do that. After doing so many toilets and fixing the toilet and fixing this, that, and other, I'm like, let me try my hand at some of these things and maybe invest in real estate and different stuff like that. So that's where it took me, and I'm happy it did.
Ruben, most of us only are lucky enough to play sports into high school or into college, and then we kind of lose that locker room teammate, guy friends, bouncing things off, guys who are like your confidants, right? You've got coaches, you got all the support like from different guys in your life. And like you retire, I imagine that kind of vanishes. Yes, you still have a friend group, but not to the intensity that a team has or with all your coaches. And how tough is that transition to like lose all of that camaraderie, like literally overnight? That like support system that you have in place just is kind of vanishes, right? Overnight when you retire.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could feel lonely and you could feel lost. Part of it is, one, you yourself got to figure a way to reach out, because all the guys are available. We just don't have the obligation to be together anymore. So you just have to remember your friends like myself. I reach out to Olin Kreutz here and there. I have other guys that I've played with that I stay in touch with. I'm talked to Thomas Jones some time ago. Then on my Buffalo Bills side, John Fina and myself, we're always in conversation over stuff. And then, and just like any of the guys that play pro ball, they'll tell you probably half of them speak mostly to their college buddies than anything. So that's been a part of my life. I've just always been a social guy.
Yeah,
so
this is true.
When I retired, it was easy. The guys were already calling me. You know, we were already talking. So it was just a matter of me keeping up with it, and also noticing if maybe I needed to call one of the guys. We're all fortunate. A lot of us were fortunate to know Cortez Kennedy. Right. And that was a big thing with him. And I didn't realize it until I had retired. He would always like, I'm just calling to check in. I'm going to call you to check in. And he was my fiercest competitor. I mean, toughest guy I ever had to play against. But here, after football was over, we had a bond, and he was willing to pick up the phone at different times and just say, hey, I'm just calling to say hi and check in with you. And that goes a long way, guys. You know.
It does.
I mean, just in your own personal life, you know what that's like, but to have Cortez Kennedy call you.
Well, don't you think?
Cool.
Don't you think there are some players who were younger than you who came up after you who feel the same way? Hey, Ruben Brown is calling me, and have you found out that when you've done that guys are not only glad to hear from you, but needed to hear from you or needed to hear from somebody? And what's that conversation like?
I try to. I have a few young guys that I'll reach out to and stay in contact with, and they give me a warm response for having reached out to them. So it lights me up. It makes me feel good. So like I said, Cortez did it for me. So I try to do it to some of my other buddies, just to remember Cortez, for one. And then two, usually the guys I'm reaching out to, there are some guys that needed a call, or I needed to make that call too. So
we'll be right back. Listeners, You know, I've been talking about Pete Learning for a few weeks now. Pete is an out-of-the-box training department that helps companies of all sizes reach their company training initiatives. So picture this. Your company leaders hold all kinds of institutional knowledge, but it takes time for them to create and manage the training that it takes to share that knowledge and other company objectives with their employees. And that's time away from what those leaders do best. That is where Pete comes in. Pete uses artificial intelligence, AI, to create robust, threaded training curriculum quickly and inexpensively. Put simply, Pete is an indispensable partner for any growing company. It is win-win at every level. So visit Pete Learning at pete.com. That is PETE.com.
Three Bridges is proud to be a sponsor of the Back Nine. My business partner and I founded the company in 2019 with the simple premise that we wanted to be the best storytellers for your brand. Let's be real here. We say bring your brand to life because if you don't have video, your brand is either dead or dying. We recently completed a project with a huge resort out in Colorado Springs called Garden of the Gods. We produced multiple videos that I am personally very proud of, and more importantly, they are thrilled with them. If you want to see our work, check out Three Bridges Consulting on our YouTube page. That's the number 3 Bridges Consulting on YouTube, and see how we can breathe life into your brand.
All right, back to the show.
So what was being a dad like after, other than like the driving thing? What were some of your highlights of this sort of back nine journey with your kids, watching them get older, having more time than a lot of parents have with their kids because they're still grinding? You were fortunate to have a great career, probably put some money away, get to kind of make your own personal choices. Give us the highlights of the world of Ruben as a dad, not just a football player.
Well, Ruben as a dad did not attend every practice or pick his kids every day at school because sometimes there were some lessons that needed to be learned by some suburban raised kids that were in walking distance of the school, and they insisted they needed a ride, and I'm like, buddy. So it was fun. I laugh now, and I'm sure my kids would laugh about some of the things that I did or tried to parent them, maybe in similar ways that my parents parented me. And then here we're living in a suburban area where I grew up, a totally different background. And I can remember my daughter once saying to me, it's like, Dad, what parent says and does the things that you do? This is my young daughter saying this to me. And then she goes, oh, yeah, grandma's pretty crazy, too.
That's fantastic. When it was time to exit the league, we've talked about this moment with a lot of our guests and we've heard comments about it. How do you know when it's time to make a change? Sometimes it's a career change because of something that's going on financially with where they are, or their growth in their own circumstances. For you, it's obviously very public because you're who you are and you've done what you've done out in the public. So what was that moment like for you when you had to make that decision? Do I have it in me to play another season? And maybe you'd even thought about that before you finally said, I don't.
Yeah. I really wanted to go out trying on the field, like actually getting a chance to make a team and maybe not make the team and get cut or something like that. I don't know. The management doesn't always like to give a old guy a last hurrah. But it kind of crept in my mind, and I've heard from other athletes and great minds, even Marv Levy said, if you're thinking about it, it's about time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've heard that.
You know, soon as it's in your head and it's bouncing around, now you're not doing the same stuff anymore. You're in a whole nother place. So for me, it was difficult because I always believed all right, just give me a couple of weeks. I'm going to get ready. I'll be ready to go by the time the season gets started. But, you know, I guess like late into the decision, I came to grips that even though maybe I wanted to try some more, no one was wanted to give me a chance to do it. So that's when you say, all right, we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're heading into a new season. What are your thoughts? I mean, I guess we'll start with the Bills just because I'm curious as to what you think about them finally getting over the hump, and then who you think is going to get it done this year.
I think for the Bills could be very dangerous if they find some gems coming through camp. Whatever they've drafted and whatever they brought in free agent wise, I don't think the loss of Diggs is going to definitely be that much of a detriment, because I think there's some possibilities that some young guys can take that role on and excel and give Josh some assistance. We got Josh, and it's a great chance when you have a quarterback like that.
Can I ask also about the Bears?
I knew you were going to do that.
I was going to
Bears, right? I know you got to do the Bears.
Yeah,
next,
I mean, they're an exciting team. They've built up their receiver room, and they've got the number one pick playing quarterback.
Well, I tell you right now, I'm very bullish on the Bears. I'm telling you, my Bears have, I think, the same type of lightning in a bottle that you saw from the Texans last year. Mm. I think the Bears have that type of thing, especially with the experience at the receiving corps. That's a huge difference than the quarterback being the experienced one and the receivers not being. I really think that's going to be an asset to them. I think they're going to figure that defense out over there. They're really going to figure something out over there where they're going to be effective enough to give this young quarterback a shot. And I mean, the Bears definitely should be challenging for the North. They should be challenging for it because no one clearly has it. I don't care if Detroit is whatever they are. No one clearly has it. It's always tough up there in the North. There's never a guarantee. Very few organizations have won back-to-back titles in the North. It's very tough. And Chicago is sitting in a really sweet spot. And it's the X factor of a fresh new quarterback.
Mm-hmm. My dad will be very pleased to hear that.
When he hears this.
My dad, 80-year-old dad, who's still a huge season ticket holder for the Bears.
So Ruben, presumably you're only on about the 10th hole on the back nine, like Josh and myself, right? So you got some runway left. What are some of your goals, sort of, as you look towards playing the rest of the holes on the back nine?
I got some plans for a few projects that I want to get involved with. And I'm developing them right now, so I'll elaborate on it later. But they just came about naturally. It's just something that just sparked me, and I'm like, all right, let me look into this and see if I'm good at it. I'm interested enough, and I have the time. So I'm going to continue to explore now. And I thought my exploring days were over, but just seems like, wow, I just found some more stuff to explore.
Well, two things before we let you go. One is I really think that you should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm amazed. I know you're in the College Football Hall of Fame. The fact that you're not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame is a joke, and you should 100% be in there. The second thing I wouldn't give up is any kind of like podcasting or broadcasting career, because you are a natural on the air too. So hopefully you're still doing some of that or dabbling in some of that. If you're not, we might get you on a podcast network here in the future. We'll wait and see.
But you call me. I'm around. We could fit it in somewhere.
We'd appreciate that. You've made our show better. It's so great to see you and hear your stories and just spend time with you again, my friend.
Always, guys. Always great to hear and see you. Isn't this awesome? My grandmother was 96 when she passed, and I put this in in front of her, and she was like, "Granny," I said, "How amazing is this?" She was like, "I used to ride a buggy in a cart before, son."
Let's all get that far.
That's right.
I know.
That's right.
So, yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate all the kind words, guys. You guys are great.
All right, brother.
Awesome. Thanks, Ruben.
Sincere, man. See you.
Take care.
You know, he is still a phenomenal interview.
Yeah.
He's just such a great person and authentic. And you think about the things that he accomplished in his career. But I just love how healthy he was, right? I mean, at this point, I mean, he has a really good sense of what people need. And I mean, yes, he's embraced his role of being a social person to help better people and taking the examples of people who reached out to him, world-class players like Cortez Kennedy, and carrying that forward.
What I think the NFL should do is make him the poster child and the example, so how current players should react with the media now. He was the best. He was always front and center, never shied away from, like, if they had a bad game, and they had some awful losses while he was there, right?
Both in Buffalo and in Chicago.
Right.
Yeah.
We lived through some terrible games, and he was always sort of not that he was always that jovial and that happy, but he was always a stand-up guy that would stand up and talk to you, stand up in front of the media, not some of these little babies that run and hide when things are bad, right? And they're only voices on Twitter, right? This guy was front and center all the time, stand-up guy, and should be kind of the poster child for how athletes should act on the front nine.
What are your takeaways from being on the back nine that you think he's doing well?
Well, I think the fact that first of all, he took the time with his kids, but also gave them the perspective on not just like living fancy in the suburbs, and he pushed them to, remains to be seen how that went. But the bigger thing for me is just his openness to different things that come his way. I think he wants to stay relevant, sharp, and the way to do that is to be open-minded and not be retired. Right? He's retired from football, but he's not retired from life. And he's like constantly trying to do things that are going to engage his brain, challenge him, and those kinds of things. So that's what I got out of it.
I completely agree with that. And recognizing in that moment that there's a lot of different ways that your post-playing career can go. And to have the time and the direction to explore things that we think are going to be interesting. And I can identify, and this is a way it's relatable. I mean, I can't identify with a 9-time Pro Bowl, 6'5", massive athlete like he is and was. But I can identify with the fact that suddenly you're in a situation where what had been your daily routine is no longer. He played for 13 years. I was in my last job for 14. And now now I chose to do it, but there were lots of possibilities out there. That was 5 months ago now. And some of the things that I thought were interesting, I explored and said, yeah, that's not interesting anymore. Or it's not as interesting as I thought it was. And some of them were things I thought were interesting, but they haven't panned out just yet, or may not, but right. Whatever it is. But that idea of you go through a period of time, and this is healthy for anybody who is in a similar situation and thinking about, either, whether by choice or by force, they're thinking about a new career, to be able to have the time, this time to explore, figure out what things have stickiness, and then pursue those. I can identify with that.
Well, the other thing you stepped out of recently, and I stepped out of it when I left corporate, is your work family is your family. Like, you're around these people all the time. They know about you. Like, I can remember all the people I worked with in my last corporate job in Sacramento. I mean, I was around these sales reps every day. I knew what their kids were doing. Mm-hmm. They knew what my kids were doing, all of it. And literally that vanishes in one day when you leave. It really does. I mean, you try to stay in touch with a few people, but at the end of the day, it really vanishes. Take that times 100 with a player in professional sports that has this incredible network and infrastructure. And we've talked about this with Pete Hassan and some of the other people. They have this incredible network of care and people that are looking out for them and have their back and friends they can bounce this off to. And I went through this and I went through that. Gone in 1 minute. Yeah. Like the second they hang it up. And he sounds like he's got a good perspective on it, but he's an extrovert. What happens to the introvert? He kind of said that. It's like, I knew the people I have to reach out to because they're not going to reach out. So, you know, an extrovert like him is probably always going to have that group around him. But there's people that don't, and they've got to transition. And while it's especially true for an athlete because they've had that infrastructure since they were in middle school to the time when they're retiring, you know, a guy like Ruben in his late 30s, others in their 20s or whatever it might be, we don't have quite that. We probably maneuvered around a little bit, but the point is still the same. It is. And it's how do you make yourself available? Even when you're having a dark day, it's really important to make yourself available. That's, I think, a great opportunity for social media. Maybe you're not even pointing, hey, I went on this great hike or I'm doing this incredible thing, just to post something so that other people look at it and you know you're seeing them. So you think, oh, I should reach out to them. I can make myself available for them to reach out to me. And I think at a time when it can be a little bit disillusioning or disconcerting to feel like your whole world has, all the things that are around you have gone away, to be able to have those conversations, to keep those social constructs going can lead to a healthy result like it has for Ruben. Yeah, and I mean, I'll even take it a step further. A lot of people work from home, only from home.
Yeah,
and they work by themselves. I'm one of those people. The people we're hiring now all work alone by themselves. And we've had conversations. We are very deliberate about having like group Zoom meetings and things like that to make sure. And when we do it, we make sure not just to talk about work. Like we want to know what's going on as if we walked into the office that morning. So I would tell people right now, if you are just like working from home and you have those Zoom meetings, make sure you carve out 5 to 10 minutes of it to talk about like, how are your kids? How's your dog? Like all of those kinds of things that are really important that you would do if you stepped into an office and you saw that colleague of yours and you saw that person. You would do those kinds of things by the coffee maker or whatever, right? So try to incorporate those all into your Zoom, Google Meet life, if you will, because I think it's really important for us to be more than just work and be engaged like that when we're working from home.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point and an interesting thing to draw out of a fantastic guest that we had today. An all-pro, truly an all-pro guest, literally. And we look forward to bringing you more of those coming up soon on The Back Nine. Hey, listeners, we just wanted to thank you for being a part of our community to date. We love the feedback you've given us to this point as we continue to build The Back Nine above and beyond what we're already doing.
Yeah, help us by following, subscribing, and or downloading and sharing with your friends and family as well. We have lots of plans for how we can continue to provide good perspective and fantastic resources for all of you. So join us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or your preferred platform, and know that we are incredibly grateful for your support.
Yeah, we are. We look forward to seeing you in person soon, hint, hint, and knowing that you're out there making the loop with us every week on The Back Nine. The Back Nine is meticulously curated by Janine Stella and recorded at Pixelworks Studios in Delray Beach, Florida.